there, welcome to Inquiring Minds. My name is Doug and I'm back with another Pen Resurrection Sunday video. I'm not actually resurrecting any fountain pens today because I just returned from a week-long trip to Ontario where we successfully launched my wife's book, Stone Cold Tea. While we were there, we visited an antique shop where I scored quite a few antique fountain pens a couple of years ago. And I found 2 fountain pens and a fountain pen and pencil set. I want to show each of these pens, look at their condition, and talk a little bit about the model histories. First up, this 1940s Canadian-made Waterman Stalwart. Made in Waterman's Ideal factory in Saint-Lambert, Quebec, just south of Montreal, this celluloid pen has 2 cap bands, which means it's a stalwart, not a starlet, which has 1 cap band. I've restored a few of these beautiful celluloid lever fillers before. I restored one beautiful starlet in a galaxy blue from this very same antique store. And you can see that restoration by clicking right up here. Let's take a look at this pen. It has the typical Art Deco Waterman's clip. Much of the gold plate seems to have worn off. It has Waterman's down the center. And there's the top rivet. Lots of the gold is gone from there. Doesn't seem to be any major splits. There's a small split right there in the celluloid, but that doesn't tend to spread on these. And the cap has Waterman's Made in Canada stamped into it there. And the barrel has the spade lever filler, which is a bit spongy. I doubt there's a usable sack inside there. And then it says Waterman's Made in Canada fountain pen with a bunch of snot all over it. We'll have to remove all of that. Lots of gouges and wear from 80 plus years of use. The cap unscrews, and there we have the black plastic section and the nib. Let's see if we can get close and see what's up with this nib. It's hard to see what it says through the camera, so I'm going to have to use my loupe here to see what it says. And it says Waterman's Ideal 14 KT Canada 2A. And it looks very, very dull, but that shines up, as we know, because it's gold. There's the ebonite feed, and this is indeed an oblique grind. It looks like an oblique stub. It needs some adjustment. I don't know how well I can focus in on this, but it needs some adjustment there. And this section, of course, needs to be heated off. But I've done a few of these. It's just a typical sack inside there. We'll heat that section off, replace the sack inside, knock the feed and the nib out, and polish all of that up and clean it up, and see how bright we can get that hardware. Something to look forward to. I think that celluloid is going to come up, so it looks fantastic. Look at that. Waterman opened a manufacturing plant in Saint-Lambert, Quebec, on the south shore of the St. Lawrence River, across from Montreal, in 1909, and existed until the early 1970s. Here's a photo of the original Waterman Ideal factory at 2 Waterman Street, Saint-Lambert, Quebec, from the 1930s. And here's the location today in images from Google Maps. The building has been made into residences, but the original Ideal logo is still in stone on the facade of the building. Very cool. I wonder how many residents there know that they're living in a pen factory. Next up, we have an Eversharp Kingswood celluloid lever filler fountain pen from the 1930s or 40s. Let's take a look at this pen. It has a unique stepped shape Art Deco style clip with much, if not all, of the gold plating gone, but it has a really interesting curly Q at the very end. I'll have to see if I can get this top finial off. It needs some severe polishing because it's gouged like crazy. Someone liked to chew the end of their pen, and if we can get that off, we might be able to bend that back into place again because it's a little bit deflected. This beautiful gray and silver celluloid is very Parker-like, and these pens had a lot of similarity to Parker's. In fact, Parker ended up owning Eversharp, and the Parker Victory looks very similar to this pen. There's one small thin cap band, and then the barrel has the lever filler. Let's check that out. Crunch, crunch. Yep. Crunch, crunch. So we know that needs to be replaced, of course. And here on the barrel is the impression that says Kingswood, British made. And then it tapers down to the end. There's lots of gouges and wear on this very, very old pen. And the cap unscrews and we see the black plastic section. Yeah, that needs to be heated off, and what looks like a number 2 size gold nib. And let's see what that nib says. This one says Eversharp 14CT Osmi, that's OSMI, Iridium. So another 14 karat gold nib with a nice heart-shaped breather hole, black ebonite feed. And this nib needs a little bit of TLC, but just a little bit. It seems to be a little bit bent and twisted. Seems to be folded in on itself like a tent. So we'll have to get that. Yeah, I can feel that ridge right along there. So we'll have to get that nib out and see if we can repair it. Very interesting looking pen. The website Gold Writers Pens blog states that, quote, Eversharp had a British presence from as far back as the 1920s, though initially I suspect that they were only importers of the American parent company. By the 1930s, trade advertisements asserted that Eversharp pens were made in London as well as in Toronto and Chicago. These pens were the same as the USA range. If it's true that they were also made in London, there's no indication who manufactured them. Later on the website, he states that the Kingswood in Britain may have been produced by Unique or Valentine pens. I'm guessing that this is a 1930s to 40s model, because after the Battle of Britain in 1940, there wasn't a lot of manufacturing happening in London due to the war effort. And last but not least, I found this gorgeous Parker 45 pen and pencil set in the original box. Although I have a thing for Parker Vacuumatics and Parker 51 Vacuumatics, the Parker 45 I think is the closest Parker got to perfection in pen design. It posts exceptionally well, takes cartridges or a converter, and has an easily disassembled nib unit. The Parker 45 was designed by the legendary Don Doman, who also designed the Parker 61, Parker VP, Parker 75, and the Parker TI. The model was named after the Western revolver, the Colt 45, because of Parker's new and innovative ink cartridge technology. It was made for an astonishing 47 years, from 1960 until 2007. It's a great fountain pen to collect because there were millions made in hundreds of different colors and finishes, and they are relatively inexpensive because there's just so many of them. Let's take a look at this pen. It has the gold-filled cap. That has the the sleek version of the Parker Arrow, and this has the dished top, which says to me that it's an earlier model. Not quite sure what the year is. There are no date codes on these Parker 45s. A little bit of dirt in there. Beautiful slip cap. The section and the barrel all in excellent shape. Just a little bit of wear. There's no cartridge or converter, but they're easy to obtain since they're exactly the same as they were back in the day today. And to remove this nib, you unscrew. I might get ink on my hands here because I gave this a try already by dipping it. But you unscrew the nose cone here and then just give it a push back like that, and you can take the nib off the feed. And then we can take a look at it. So I'm going to take a look with my loupe here, and this nib says 14K Parker, made in the USA. And there it is, 14 karat gold, and this one is a medium. And the nib size indication is on the back of this little collar right there. There's the M. To put it back on, just as simple. Just drop that little gold nib on top of the feed. There, it fits in one way, and just push the collar back down. And you're done. And just screw the unit back into the section. Easy peasy. Let's look at the matching pencil. It's in really, really good shape. Takes 1mm leads, and it is the retractable version. The cap comes off, and then there's an eraser in this end. And there you have it. Watch my Wix website listed below, as I'll probably be offering these pens for sale once they are back from the dead. Well, if they're back from the dead at least. And thank you for watching.
try this.